Brent, Andrew, how are you?
Very well.
Doing good.
Thank you, Eric.
Glad to be here. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, happy to have you here, Brent. I feel privileged to see you joining us here at our Accelerate No Code Revolution. So I'm going to leave you in the hands of our capable CSO, Andrew Fenton, and I'm looking forward to hearing your discussion, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Eric. So Brent, as we've just heard, clearly you're a very, very busy man. So I'll jump into the first question if I can. Technology, right? Evolving at such a rapid pace, enabling faster change and progress. What would you say the main technology trends that we should be looking out for, Brent, through to 22 and beyond?
Well, I think probably the one trend that will only get trendier or maybe accelerate in its trendiness is the change in a pace that technology comes to us. It feels like every day you could wake up and there's something brand new, technologically speaking, that will change our lives. And by the end of the day, something else has already changed that. So it just feels like the pace of technology and the pace of transformation is only going to accelerate as we move forward. So I think from our perspective, from users and from practitioners and from technologists, it's being able to work and understand and be able to create at the speed of adoption, because adoption, I think the reason why a lot of these technologies are getting faster and faster is because we like them. We like to use them. We like to feel like we're able to take these new technologies and improve our lives and experiences. So I think that's the biggest trend, is the one that's already going on, and it's just going to keep getting faster and faster as we go along.
Yeah, okay. So the pace will just intensify as we go. And I guess that reminds me of an expression, right? There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. How do you think organizations can embrace these new technologies as quickly as they're evolving then, to your point?
Well, the funny thing is, we don't have to look into the far away past to see examples of that. We can just look into the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody, businesses, personal, regular folks, we were forced pretty much overnight to have to change the way that we did kind of like basic stuff like shopping at the grocery store. We couldn't do that. So we had to adapt the way that we shopped, which is a lot of us, we had to shop online for groceries for the first time. The interesting thing was, you could do that before the pandemic. There were tons of people that were already, shopping for groceries online, but the vast majority of us weren't, because we were just so used to doing it the way that we grew up doing it. But overnight, when it was kind of taken away from us, we adapted. We had to do what we had to do. So I think if we just look at the lessons that come out of this pandemic, and maybe think, instead of having to wait until we're forced to do something, and eventually, you do it, and it's like, hey, that's not that bad. And even when we're opening up, things are getting better. People that never shopped for groceries online before the pandemic are saying, you know what, I actually kind of like doing this. So they're going to continue to do it even after they're, fully opened up. So I think if we're able to take the lessons of not waiting to do things until we're forced to do it, and then we find out that they're great, if we're a little bit more bold or a little bit more open to what the possibilities of what this technology can do, and think a little bit more creatively, before the door gets shut, I think we can pull from these past experiences and be able to build and be much faster, much more, fluent with our moves and decision making and our abilities to put things in place.
Yeah, right, Brent. So the new normal, if you like, and take advantage before it's forced upon us. Yeah, no, I get that. And I guess from a technology point of view, there's lots of technology, and to your point, it's coming at us faster than ever. what would you see as fads versus technology that you think's here to stay?
Well, I don't know if I would call it a fad or if I would just say it's probably something that's going to not be a standalone, but will be part of like the normal communications, platforms or social platforms. We hear this term social audio, and there are like platforms out there that just do that and have gotten a lot of attention. But I don't think standalone social audio is something that will be with us for very long. I think the ability to share your voice and build and have a group of folks jump on at any minute of the time or any part of the day. I think that's important, but I don't think it's as important as a standalone vehicle. I think you're already seeing like Twitter integrate audio into their platform, and you're seeing all these bigger platforms doing that. Clubhouse is a standalone, and it got a lot of attention. But I think talking to people and being able to gather people around for a quick chat is something that's not going to be a standalone. It's just going to be a piece of the overall platform. We've already seen that happen today.
It's going to become a part of the new normal, right? So it's no longer going to be something on its own. What about things like CRM? What about things like no code? How do you see these fitting in?
Well, CRM, I think people have been trying to bury CRM for ever at this point, but it's not going anywhere. And it's actually becoming, kind of a foundational piece on how we interact with customers, how we interact with partners to do deals, how do employees collaborate. And so CRM is probably more important now than it ever has been. And as part of the kind of the interaction in the customer journey ecosystem, it's at its core, because it allows people to gather the information they need, have the AI run on it, find insights that are important to create better experiences. And it's just getting more and more important as time goes on. And so when you think of no code, and I always go back to this conversation I had with Catherine, actually it was earlier this year, where I believe it was, don't quote me on the actual numbers, but I think it's about 500 million applications that are going to need to be built over the next several years. And there's just not enough developers to do the kind of applications and the number of applications that we all need in order to run our businesses or to create these great automated processes. So you need tools like no code to enable people who are not born and bred coders, who don't eat, sleep, and drink code, to be able to do things that they need done to improve the relationships and improve the services and application experiences that they're trying to create for customers. So no code expands the playing field. It lets people who aren't coders do the kind of things that coders in the past were the only ones that were able to do this stuff. So I think no code plays a huge part, because it puts the power in the hands of people who are more business oriented, who know exactly what they need to do to improve services and experiences for customers. It allows them to actually do it instead of having to put a request in, and if there isn't enough coders or programmers in the organization, then they're going to have to go out and try to find some. It takes them forever to actually get what they need in their hands and use it, and by the time that they actually get something, their needs may have changed. The expectation of customers may have changed. So you might have gotten exactly what you wanted, but you got it so late that it's no good anymore. And these kind of things are what we have to do a better job in making sure that when a customer demand or expectation, we sense it, we identify it, we're able to answer it as soon as possible. And without no code, I don't think that's going to be possible.
Fantastic. So no code about empowering the business and really being able to do this at the pace upon which things are increasing, as we set out at the very start of this conversation, right? And from a CRM point of view, that unification of how to look at a customer and predict what's going to happen rather than be reactive to what's happened. I think that's kind of the main elements I pull out of that. And I guess, look, no code's platform is here, right? It's here right now. We see enterprises picking this up. What role do you see a no code platform playing in the strategies?
Well, I think because you kind of are able to have the business person who is at the forefront of interacting with customers, trying to figure out the best ways to, generate leads, convert leads, close opportunities, service folks, keep them around longer, understand their customers, and be able to predict what their needs are going to be so that they can get it to them before they're asked for. There's a lot of stuff going on that you need to know in order to create not only a good relationship with a customer, but a long lasting one, which grows over time, which goes where the customer needs to go. And in some instances, you might need to lead the customers because, we have the opportunity to look at the data and have AI run and look at all these interactions and have these next best steps, next best recommendations, actions, interactions. And so in certain instances, we're able to help them along the way and sometimes even guide them. You give them information as to which path may be the best one for you. All of that can't be done if you're not able to take all of that knowledge that's in the business development person's head and translate that into something that actually helps bring that to life. And so I think it's really important, is particularly I'll stick to the CRM and the customer experience stuff. Every bit of data, any bit of information should be used to try to figure out what's the best interaction, what's the best opportunity to create a service or experience that will help your customers stay with you, be successful, and stay with you over time. Because more time, more engagement should lead to more knowledge and more insight of what's important to them and what we need to do to help them. And that's where the focus should be. It shouldn't be on, bits and bytes. It should be on, all right, we've got what we need. How do we translate that into getting it to them? And I think a no-code platform allows more people to be involved in that process, but in the process above the code, where all the thoughts and strategies and processes get determined, get flushed out, and then no code helps those get implemented. And that's really where it should be. I think I saw earlier in one of these Creatio presentations where there's going to be 4 times as many business folks doing no code than there are going to be like hardcore developers in the actual professional code side. That no code is basically the enabler to make that happen. If that's not there, then that can't happen. And if that can't happen, all the 500 million applications that we need to, keep going with these customers and providing them what they need, that'll never happen.
Fantastic. So this is about empowering the business. It's about using the predictive capabilities, turning those into suggestions on next best actions, helping somebody do their job, helping that organization move forwards, as opposed to being reactive. I think that's a really cool point. So look, we've talked a lot about the shift of pace, the new normal. What is it that companies have really had to do around their strategy, do you think, Brent, around this shift of pace and this new normal? What have they had to adjust in their strategies?
It's going to sound like, yeah, we already know this stuff, but sometimes knowing it and doing it, well, I was going to say sometimes, but most of the times knowing it and doing it are like completely different ballgames. And now let's talk about digital transformation. And before the pandemic, I would say that a lot of the companies that I dealt with and communicated with, and the people at those companies, when you talked about digital transformation, I think the vast majority of them were thinking, how do we take what we already do, and a lot of it is manual. How can we take what we already do and do it more efficiently and more effectively, but more efficiently? And so it's basically, I would call that a digital transition more than I would call it digital transformation, because using the technology to like make it more efficient to do what we already do, that's just transition. That's transition from probably manually doing these things to using some form of automation to do it, which is great. I think that's really important. And I think that was where a lot of the emphasis on digital transformation was pre-pandemic. But I think what happened because of the pandemic, and going back to the example of we had to start doing things differently because what we were already doing, we couldn't do. Because of that, I think it made a lot of companies rethink the definition of digital transformation, because it went from that transitional doing what we do more efficiently to actually, all right, what do we need to do, because what we were doing we can't do right now. So transformation finally became not just doing what we do more efficiently, it became, what can we do? How do we get past this hurdle that we didn't have before? And so digital transformation began to open up and begin to have people say, all right, let's look at all these different technologies and let's look at how we can do something, because right now we can't do it the way we're normally doing it. I love that, because I think it forced organizations to do things, to think differently, to approach problems differently, to look for solutions to things that that they did know about, challenges they did know about, but then also start to even think further away from that traditional thinking to say, well, man, why don't we do this? Why don't we try doing this? Because we never really had to do that, all the time. We just did it because at the time, 5-10 years ago, we had to do it like that. Now, I think more organizations are thinking way out of the box. Some of them have created completely different business models because they just never thought about it before. Now that they've been forced to think about business and interaction and relationships and working, remote work now, we're doing this virtual event. We're talking to, people all around the world in a way that we probably didn't do even a couple of years ago. So I think the pandemic has forced digital transformation to open up and to do more things and be more things and take more approaches and be more experimental on how we interact and engage and how we work. And that's had a lot of unbelievable impact, because I'm seeing things that I know I wouldn't have seen a couple of years ago.
Fantastic. I guess this is about disruption and using technology to help disrupt or to adapt because of the disruption that's happening around you. Either way, it's a change to the strategy, right? We've had strategy plans in place. Those have all needed to be either ripped up entirely or shifted a significant amount. What would you say the important factors are when you're looking at building a strategic plan, given these shifting disruptive technologies that we've just been talking about?
I think one of the really basic things that companies are going to have to do going forward, because there's no turning back. It's like Pandora's box has been opened. And particularly when you're looking at the Generation Z and millennials that are stepping up and starting to get into, if not already into, these authoritative positions within organizations, is they're used to doing things differently than, I'm a Gen Xer, they're baby boomers, things that we did and we were comfortable with, they're not. The way that they communicate is completely different than what, somebody my age probably would be used to doing. And they do things, they multitask, they get a lot of things done, and, all at the same time. They're used to communicating in a different way, and as these newer channels come up, TikTok is something that I didn't see coming. And I didn't really realize up until like maybe 6 months ago how big TikTok is. and now they got over 1 billion active users. That wasn't around 5 years ago. There are so many things that are here now that are big and have hundreds of millions of people doing it, using them every day, that weren't here 3, 4, 5 years ago. And so companies have to be open to being quick in adopting and looking at, making sure they're keeping a pulse on these things that do come up. Some of them are not going to be important. Others are. And it's kind of hard to pick and choose what they are unless you really spend some time understanding it. And sometimes you just need the right people, who are kind of native to some of these things. You got to have them involved. And so it's about having a kind of organization that is open to change, actually looking for change, looking for ways to improve, and not just looking for ways to be more efficient in what we do. And that means, structuring the organization a little differently, getting more people, multi-generational people around, geographically speaking. If you have customers in all areas of the world, you're going to want to have an understanding of what's important to those areas of the world from a customer perspective, at least, and from an employee perspective, because chances are, the kind of people you're trying to sell to, you need to have those folks on your payroll, either as employees or either, partner with organizations or other companies that are looking at the same group of people, that consumer group. But it has to be things that maybe are a little uncomfortable because, people generally speaking don't like change. But I think these younger generations, they love it, and they love experimenting with new technology and putting it in place. And companies who are usually not, good with that, they're going to be the ones in trouble. The companies that are willing to look at new technology, look at new platforms, and see what they offer and see how their customers are using them, or maybe not even using them, but maybe we can help them, see the benefit in them because we see the benefit in them. Those are two kind of foundational changes, just opening up their mind, being more open to it, making sure that they have representation, diversity, inclusion. All of these things are going to be more important as time goes on, I think.
Brilliant. So rather than a top-down strategy, it's about being inclusive. It's about being open and to explore what needs to happen to have this feedback loop back into a strategy. And you never know whether a strategy is going to work out or not, right? The key here is that the pace upon which we're experiencing technology change, the pace upon which the strategy has got to change. And I guess really kind of stepping back slightly here, Brent, any tips on how we would measure and effectively make sure that strategy is working out for us?
Yeah, I think it's really important to, not just throw stuff out there, but be ready to kind of measure the impact. I'll tell you one thing. We hear a lot about the creator economy, and I hadn't thought about it from a B2B perspective. I've always thought about it from more of a consumer perspective. But I've noticed something lately that I think is something that we all on the B2B side of the house need to be thinking about. And it's through my search to buy the right MacBook Pro. So Apple announced a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month, that they're coming out with their new line of MacBook Pros, and they can do all these crazy amazing things. The big announcement was about like an hour-long keynote. I watched it and I was like, this is great. But the thing that got me was not the Apple keynote, although it was really well done. The aftermath of the keynote. I went to YouTube, and there was running commentaries, people talking about giving analysis on what they heard. They were giving analysis on what they heard in terms of I'm a videographer, this is what it means to me. I'm a photographer, this is what it means to me. And so I was able to get so much more insight on the actual devices that were being offered from other people, not from Apple. But Apple put the content out there, and people, these enthusiasts, they gravitated towards it. Then when I made my decision, I'm supposed to get mine today, so I'm really excited about that. But people have already started receiving their MacBooks. So what's happened since then? As soon as these people start getting them, they're running tests on it. They're putting up videos of it. They're running these benchmarks. They're showing people how it works with this particular software. You are seeing this whole creator economy sell, these MacBooks and devices, and they're not even a part of the formal Apple ecosystem, but they are driving knowledge and insight and buying that I don't think 2 years ago you would have seen at this level. So I think if you are a company and you are a B2B company, and you have to start thinking about how do we do these things, and how do we track if we're on the right track, if we're hitting the right mark. What if we're not? What do we need? Do we just go away, or do we tweak it? And it's this fail fast experimentation kind of gene you have to have now, to not be afraid of trying and not be afraid of failing, as long as you fail fast and you limit the fail in terms of time and resources. I think that is huge. And this creator economy, and being able to see how these folks are selling, they're not just selling the product, but they're educating on the product. They're telling you how it compares, how it contrasts, what you can do, what you can't do. They're even telling you, look, don't buy the high level if you don't need it. Now that might be a negative, but at least, it's an honest voice. And I think what people are looking for are honest voices that they can trust when they're looking for a buying decision. And sometimes that's not necessarily a direct employee, but you have to engage even more than maybe 4 or 5 years ago around this.
Yeah, so you've got an influence sphere that goes way beyond a payroll scenario, right? So this is interesting. If I spin this slightly differently, Brent, I think about the needs of customers, because this is an interesting view. You bring up around the influence. What do you think the future needs of customers are going to be over the next? I hate to put a time frame on it, right? But maybe 5 years, maybe see it through to 10. We all know by the time that happens, everything will have changed. But right now, what do you envisage the future needs of the customers would be?
The future needs of the customers are the needs that they've had all along. They've always wanted to be heard. They've always wanted to be valued beyond the transaction. In a lot of cases, maybe this is more of the traditional aspects of the, vendor customer relationship. It really felt like the transaction was all that the vendor was into it for. And customers could feel that. I mean, there aren't that many brands that I, feel all that, warm about, because I think it's only about, they kind of made me feel like it's only about the dollar, about the transaction. I'm as good to you as the last transaction was to their bottom line. And no customer really wants to feel like that. We understand it's business, you got to make money, but we also, we have thoughts, we have things that we think can make it better. In fact, a lot of the customers know more about the product than anybody at the company does, except for maybe the person who built it. But these folks live with these products. And so these guys doing these Mac demos that I see, I'm guessing they know more about that MacBook than 80 to 90% of the folks who are actually working at Apple. And that's because they are enthusiastic about it. They're passionate about it, and they live with it. And so why stop at the transaction when they have so much more to offer? And I think it's the company's responsibility to make sure that they nurture that passion. Don't douse it out, but let them feel like they're a part of, the brand, because in a lot of ways they're the best brand ambassadors you have, because people trust them because they view them as somebody who's doing it because of the passion, not because of the dollar. And I think that's something that we all can, kind of take lessons from. And instead of try to control customers, you can't, or people out there, you can't. And what we've learned with, more people on the internet and more people on the web and more people talking on social channels is that any thought of power that a company had, it's gone. Don't even think you have it. It's your job to understand what's going on and to be able to engage on a level that makes people more comfortable and makes them trust you, so that you can be a part of that conversation, collaboration in a way that will allow you to extend your relationship over time.
Yeah, okay. Really, really cool point. So this is about getting away from the transactional feeling. It's about the feeling included in the way that makes me as a customer feel comfortable and want to engage beyond the transactional relationship. So,
well, let me take a little even. We've already been on that road because we've gone from mostly transactional. Now we're doing a lot of subscriptions, a lot of things that we consume, not only as consumers, but as business people, are month-to-month subscriptions. If you're doing that, you don't want to just live month to month, so to speak. You can't just, the only interaction every month is a transaction. I think you have to be in the mindset of every month we have to prove the value that we can deliver in order for us to get another month. So that means we're not just communicating on a transactional level. We're communicating on an informational level, on a content level, on how can we help you get more out of this service. And if you are starting to think like that and you're walking down that path, that's great, because then you're open to all these other things that we're talking about. But it all starts with getting out of the kind of the traditional, you buy it, our relationship is done until the next time we have something we want to sell to you, and we'll reach out at that point. That mindset's got to go. That's got to go if you really want to make a go of it in the future with customers.
You've got to find a way of exceeding customer expectations, right? So they really see the value. And what impact do you think no-code platforms can play in that?
Well, no code makes it easy for us to roll this stuff out. I mean, the thing about having all these great ideas and having all these great thoughts about how we could do this, unless you're able to put those things in motion, that's all they are, is great thoughts and great ideas. People don't want great thoughts and ideas. People want great services and experiences. So if those thoughts and ideas can't get into services and experiences, what's the point of having them? And so no code allows the people having the idea to actually put it in place. At least a higher percentages of those ideas get put in place, because sometimes idea to IT for getting put in place, something gets lost in transition. Something, something may be left out. There may be, oh, this is good, but oh God, I forgot to put this in. So you have a change order that has to go through the process. Sometimes it gets done, sometimes it doesn't. But if you have you have a no-code platform and you have people that are willing to, to take their ideas and not have to code it to a certain extent, but just do some clicks, do some swipes, they're going to do it. And you're going to see more of these great ideas become great experiences and services and all sorts of things. But it has to happen and driven from the folks who are at the forefront of the business, at the forefront of the relationship with the customers, but they're not coders. So if you give them tools that allow them to take what's in their head and get it out there and create that experience, you have much more likelihood of finding success and extending customer relationships longer than you ever did before.
Sounds great, Brent. Where do I sign? Right. This is about
Isn't that Creatio.com? Isn't that where you sign?
Fantastic. So this is about empowering the business and being able to work at a pace that allows you to test your theory, fail fast or succeed, get there quicker than your competition, empower the business rather than be reliant on this traditional IT scenario that can hit miss or fail or succeed, but tends to take longer. And by the time you've actually met the market, everything's changed. So you've got to then catch up in a loop. So look, this is a really good poignant point, because things are going faster and faster. Where do we see things like automation, digitization? Where does that help us in this ever increasing market that we have?
Well, we just talked about how things are accelerating, things are picking up, speeding, and that's where automation and hyper automation fits in. Because look, we're humans. There's a limit to what we can do, but if we can take the time to, create the right idea or have the right ideas and put the right processes in place, automation allows those processes to go off and do what we need to do, scale when we need them to scale. When we're hitting more and more people, we're doing all the right things. We're able to, get it even in more hands of more people. That's where the automation comes in, and that's critically important. Well, one thing I wanted to point out on, because I don't want to feel like, the IT folks are left out. I think no code and automation, they help the IT folks just as much as they help the business folks, because they get to concentrate on making sure all these things that we need, like the building blocks, the foundation that allows this stuff to scale and be secure, and make sure that all the things that we don't want to think about, we want to think about the core business stuff. We want to let the IT think about the IT stuff, because if we're able to do as much as we can, on the business side with no code, that frees them up to think about, making sure that we're able to scale when we want to go international, or making sure that we're secure and we're not getting hacked all the time and our customer data is safe. And so it actually, no code helps, the IT folks, the hardcore IT folks, just as much as it helps the no code.
It certainly does.
The business folks. Yeah.
It certainly does. Like, integrations need to happen. Okay. So this is about automating process. It's about empowering the business, but IT is critical in terms of the infrastructure, as you say, for scaling and getting that integration to happen in the environment. So look, this is really, really helpful, Brent. I've got a question in from the audience, if I can, because we've talked very much about the pace. We've talked about what needs to change in the business and how to embrace that. The questions coming through here, lots of change. Is there a technology that you see prevailing above all others over the next, they've said 10 years here, but let's just say, a good degree of time going forwards? Is there one prevailing technology here?
Yeah, one that I've been really looking at and hoping for ever since I got my first Amazon Echo device, and that's conversational AI. If we're, it's nice to be able to, maybe order your pizza or, set your thermostat, but those things are great. They're very simple commands, and some of these voice speakers do that well. But I would love to be able to, we all work with all these business applications. I would love to be able to just talk to my application and have it do the things that I typically have to do, the swipe and type and click. I would love to just have a conversation and get that done. Just think about the user adoption that would happen. Let's take the professional salesperson. They hate using CRM. They don't want to sit in the office and put data in and keep their notes up. That's like the last. They want to be out there, talking with customers, engaging, building relationships, getting, moving their deals along. That's what they live for. They do not want to be sitting in an office in front of a keyboard typing and inputting. Wouldn't it be great if they could just talk to their applications, their SFA application, and be able to do all the things that their bosses want them to do, which is get data in? Because if you're able to get data from them, because they're the ones doing the main interacting with their prospects, you're getting great information. And let's face it, a lot of that great information is not getting into the CRM application right now, because the sales folks do not want to put it in. They don't want to sit around and type. So what if we made it easy for them to input that information? What if we made it easier for them to ask for the information that they want when they need it, instead of having to go to keyboard and search and do all that. If we're able to get conversational AI, and I think we're getting close to the point where it understands us and understands us whatever language we're talking in, we can have a conversation. It's not just, I say one thing, it says something back, then I have to start over. And what if it's an actual conversation like you and I are having with your application that allows you to get everything you need in and out of your system with your voice? Then you'll have a transformation of how business is done, because now we're able to, instead of having to type and instead of having to learn a language, which is something that speaking to computers, you had to learn the computer language. What if we could just talk like we're doing now, and we're talking like that with our application? How much more productive would we be? How much more efficient would we be? How much more data would go into those systems? How much more AI capabilities could use that data to put out even better insights? That's what I'm hoping for. And I think we actually have an opportunity for that to happen.
Fantastic. So a mix here, Brent. Your view of easy access. I would add into that making sure that there's a reward, something of value for the salesperson to be in the CRM. And that's what I spend a lot of my time talking to clients about as well. I think a happy medium here of easy access and value, a reason that draws you in. Maybe a few leads, hey? But anyway, look, Brent, I have thoroughly enjoyed our time together. I'm really looking forward to catching up again soon, but thank you ever so much for sharing your thoughts with us all here today. Thank you very much.